Alright, so I'm going to pin my pattern piece down. And cut it out. So this is a bodice piece with the curve right here being the curve for the armhole. Oops. Okay, so now I'm going to transfer my markings of the dart onto the wrong side of the fabric. So I can stick my paper under here with the colored side touching the wrong side of the fabric. Then I take my tracing wheel and just push hard and trace over the lines. This middle line is the fold line, and the two lines on the side are going to be exactly where I sew the two sides together. Then I'm also going to mark the very bottom of the dart so I know exactly where my dart needs to end, so that each dart on a garment will be the same length. Then I should be able to see my lines. I'm going to unpin the pattern piece. And I can go ahead and fold on that fold line. I'm going to pin directly through the seam line and make sure that it matches on the other side. See, it's a little off there, so I'm going to manipulate it to match exactly. And then I'll put my pins all the way through once I know it, they line up. Okay, that matches. And then make sure that you get your very point on the edge, and we're ready to sew. You're going to start at the top and sew directly on the seam line that you drew. Up here you can back stitch. I'm going to go forward a little and then back, and then just go right on the lines, the dots from the tracing wheel. If you stay lined up, then eventually you'll just sew right off the fabric. And you leave long tails, you don't go backwards here. Leave tails, and then you can separate these two tails and tie your knot that way. It's kind of twisted. I like to do triple knots. 3. So then we have a dart. We're going to take it to the ironing board and use the ham to be able to iron the shape into this that we need. Can I borrow the ham and the iron really quickly?
Okay, that's a lot better.
So I will use the rounded part to iron out the shape that I need. And you're going to always iron the fold of the dart towards the center of the garment. So if this is my shoulder seam, I'm going to iron it towards the center this way. You want to make sure the bottom of that dart opens up as much as possible. Try to get it as smooth as you can. Okay, so there you have a dart. You want to have as smooth of an ending as possible. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, in order to sew a dart, you're going to have cut out your pattern piece and transferred your markings onto the wrong side of the fabric using tracing paper and a tracing wheel. Everybody done that step? Yes, okay. And then you take your dart, and you can barely see, but my markings are here, the orange dots, and I've folded it on the fold line and made sure that when I pinned the two sides together, that it went through the exact same spot. My pin, when I insert it in, goes in the dot on one side. If I drop it. In the dot on one side, and then it comes out on on the dots. Does that make sense? So you want those lines to be exactly together. That's where you're going to be sewing, okay? So what we're gonna do is just everything that we've learned about seam allowances, 5/8, half inch, you're going to forget about that, and you're going to actually sew on the dotted line where you traced, okay?
So this should be easy.
It should work. Okay, so you're going to, I would go ahead and just start with your needle down exactly where you want to sew, okay? And then lower your lever, of course, and at the top here, we can back stitch as normal. Okay, so I'm back stitching. And then I'm continuing straight exactly on that line. Usually I'm watching over here for my seam allowance, but this time I'm watching right here. It's staying exactly on the dotted line. Okay, and as it gets smaller and smaller, you're just going to get to the point where eventually you're going to sew off the edge. And you want that to be exactly where you marked. So I'm almost there, and I'm off the fabric. Okay, and then when you're done, just pull it out and leave long tails. Okay, and then you're going to take your two strings that are left and tie a knot. Can I get this unraveled? I'm going to go ahead and do a triple knot. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So then I can take it over to the iron and use the tailor's ham for that shape that you're trying to accomplish underneath your dart here. See how that makes it easier to iron the shape that you need? If I was ironing it flat, it wouldn't have the dome effect that it needs. Any questions? Okay, you just iron the dart to the side.
Is that it?
That's it.
What? Okay.